What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 16 top 20 quarterback rankings, helping you guys fill that quarterback spot for the fantasy football playoffs. If you guys enjoy, smash that like button, subscribe. Any questions, feel free to drop them down below. But let's just dive right into the rankings here. I have 4 quarterbacks in Tier 1. It's going to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. Now, if we wanted to get super particular, we could probably split up Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. It does feel like, they've kind of separated themselves from the rest of the quarterbacks. But for this video, I'm going to lump them together here. Starting off, though, with Josh Allen. Back-to-back games where he has put up 51.9 and 41.3 fantasy points. Just unbelievable. The Bills have the highest implied point total this week. Josh Allen, just a true top-tier option at the quarterback position. And then Lamar Jackson going up against the Steelers. He is the tougher matchup, which is why, he's a spot lower than Josh Allen. The Steelers are allowing the third fewest points per game to the quarterback position. But I'm not going to ding Lamar too much here. He has put up 22 plus points in 7 of his last 8. He is coming off a monster Week 15 where he put up 36.1 points. So Lamar Jackson, even in a not so great matchup, still a lock here as like a top tier quarterback 1. Then I have Jalen Hurts going up against the Commanders. Another guy with nice back-to-back performances, 24.2, 28.1. He is the quarterback 3 in points per game on the season. And then wrapping up this tier with Joe Burrow going up against the Browns. The Bengals have the 3rd highest implied point total. Burrow's actually coming off his worst game since Week 8, but it's not like he completely tanked. 16.8 points, had a few turnovers in there, but still like a fine fantasy day. He's been playing at a super high level. This Bengals offense is going to have to put up points. He is going to close out Tier 1. Now, Tier 2 is actually just going to be one quarterback. It's Jaden Daniels going up against the Eagles. He draws a tough matchup here. The Eagles are bottom 4 in points per game allowed to the quarterback position, but Jaden Daniels has been, pretty hot as of late, 23 plus in each of his last 3. Not a great implied point total at 21, but I still think Daniels is a really nice mid-tier quarterback 1 option. Maybe slightly behind those Tier 1 guys, but I do think he's a fair step ahead of the guys in Tier 3. Starting off that Tier 3, we have Baker Mayfield going up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are 4th in points per game allowed to the quarterback position. They have gotten better with Micah Parsons back, but I think Baker will be fine. The Bucks have the 5th highest implied point total. Week 15, Baker had a huge game, 28 fantasy points. Mike Evans is balling out. I like Baker here as my quarterback 6. Then I'm going to go with Jordan Love going up against the Saints. The Packers have the 2nd highest implied point total. Jordan Love hasn't been crazy as of late, 17.2 points per game in his last 5, but he's been fine. I like the matchup here. I think Jordan Love is a nice play. Then in that same division, I have Sam Darnold going up against the Seahawks. He's actually coming off his worst game since Week 10, but he's still averaging 22 points per game in his last 5. Not super scared of this Seahawks matchup. Darnold's been good throughout the season. Like him as my quarterback 8. And then another quarterback in that division, Jared Goff, going up against the Bears. Now, on paper, this is not a very good matchup. The Bears have allowed the 2nd fewest points per game to the quarterback position, but the Lions still have the 3rd highest implied point total. On paper, the Bills matchup wasn't great. Jared Goff had a monster game, 41.1 points. And then I also just think the injury to David Montgomery could definitely see the Lions going more pass heavy, which would obviously favor Jared Goff. And then also the injuries on the defensive side of the ball could be a more competitive game than we're expecting. Might need to run up the score a little bit here. So Jared Goff, my quarterback 9, and closing out Tier 3. Then in Tier 4, we're going to have Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford. For Kyler here, he's someone who I really liked heading into the season. He's been pretty disappointing, only 13.4 points per game in his last 4 games. However, on paper, this looks like a nice matchup. The Panthers are allowing the 6th most points per game to the quarterback position. The Cardinals are also top 6 in implied points. So this should be a spot where Kyler kind of has a bounce back spot, but it's also tough to fully trust him just because the production has not been there. I mean, pretty much over the entire season, and then especially as of late. And then for Matthew Stafford, he's coming off a really rough Week 15, only 8.2 points. There was that Thursday night game where no touchdowns were scored. But when he has had his 2 wide receivers, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, he's averaging 18 points per game. So when he has those guys, he has, typically been a pretty reliable option. Now moving into Tier 5, going to start off with the other guy from that Stafford matchup in Week 15, Brock Purdy going up against the Dolphins. It's not a good matchup here. The Dolphins are allowing the fewest points per game to the quarterback position, and then Purdy has just completely tanked in 2 of the last 3 weeks, under 5 points in 2 in the last 3 games. So not good from Brock Purdy. I still think he'll be fine, even in a not-so-great matchup. Still has solid weapons out there. even though with the injuries, you still have George Kittle, Juwan Jennings playing at a high level, still have Debo, I guess, out there running routes, but not overly confident in Purdy, but he is going to lead tier 5. Behind Purdy, I have Anthony Richardson going up against the Titans. Since he has reclaimed the starting spot, he's averaging 19.2 points per game, and a lot of that has just been his solid rushing usage. In those 4 games, he's averaging 47 rushing yards and then a rushing touchdown a game, which is giving him a pretty solid floor, even if the passing is a little bit suspect. Then I have Bo Nix going up against the Chargers, and it looked like he was really starting to put things together in the middle of the season. Kind of cooled off as of late, 12.2 and 13.5 in back-to-back games, 4 total touchdowns, 5 picks during that stretch. Also, not a great matchup here against the Chargers. Broncos implied point total is all the way down at 20. So not a great matchup, not playing at a super high level for fantasy as of late. Still think he's a nice, higher end at QB2, but that's why he's lower than he's been in previous weeks. A few more guys in this tier. We have Tua going up against the 49ers. He was on such a nice roll, had 23 plus points in his previous 4 games. Then in week 15, he goes out, just completely flops, only 7.8 points. I believe he had 3 picks. Also just not a great matchup here against the 49ers, 7th fewest points per game allowed. So I still think, he's playing at a high level over his last 5, even if week 15 didn't show it. But the not great matchup, the floor is pretty low with just no rushing production. So he is my quarterback 15. And then wrapping up this tier with Aaron Rodgers going up against the Rams. He started to find a little bit of consistency here late in the season, 14 plus points in each of his last 4 games. And then week 15 was his best fantasy game of the season, 30.1 points. And then my final tier here, tier 6, we have Justin Herbert and then some rookie quarterbacks. For Herbert here, big fan of him as a player. The situation just is not great. It's not a good matchup. The Broncos are bottom 6 in points per game allowed. Herbert has scored under 14 fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. And what we kind of saw in the middle of the season with him getting his rushing production going, it was giving him kind of another layer of fantasy production. With his ankle injuries, just his injuries overall, that rushing production has really kind of fallen off. He doesn't have great weapons, so not the best fantasy play. And then 3 rookies, like I mentioned. I have Michael Penix here as my quarterback 18. I guess you'd hope that in like a 1 quarterback league, if there's 4 teams left, you'd have a better option than Michael Penix, but who knows? Maybe you're, dominating everywhere else. Going up against the Giants here, making his debut, taking over for Kirk Cousins. And even though we really haven't seen him play, the Falcons are still top 6 in implied points. He has nice weapons, like he's stepping into a very favorable situation. And with him being an older prospect, he should be fairly pro-ready, has had some time to sit. I think, Michael Penix isn't the worst option if you're desperate or in a potential superflex league. Then I have Caleb Williams going up against the Lions. We know the Lions defense is banged up here. He's coming off a not so great game against the Vikings, but has scored 14 plus in 4 of his last 5. And then closing out these rankings with Drake May going up against the Bills. As a starter, Drake May is averaging 17 points per game in his full outings, and he's hit that 17-point number in each of his last 3 games. So finding some consistency here. This Bills defense had been pretty solid up until the last 2 weeks, where they've gotten 40 dropped on them back-to-back. Was the Rams offense and then the Lions, so definitely a different level than the Patriots, but I think Drake May could, find a way to do something here in this matchup. And that is going to wrap it up for my top 20. Let me know your thoughts down below. Any questions, would love to hear them. Make sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.